Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today I've got an obscure one for you. This is what is known as the Gibson Eye. This was a limited edition run in 2009, limited to just 350 pieces made. There's been rumors that not even that many were done because there wasn't a lot of orders for this really weird guitar. It's kind of like an SG redesigned into kind of like a metal vibe, but at the same time it kind of feels like a Telecaster because it's very wide in the way it feels. So seeing as most people will not ever get to see or play one of these in their lifetime simply because there's just not a lot of them out there, that's the best way to really think about these things, is just a really wide feeling SG that's flat and kind of thin and is a little bit more pokier. But you might say, hey, I've seen an Eye guitar, and that is not it. You likely remember something that looks like this. Ironically, these things were released for sale on April Fool's Day, 2009. The Gibson website calls them Fired Engine Red. That might be a typo for Fire Engine Red, but they initially had a gloss nitro finish on them, which is different from this one because it's satin. And they had red powder-coated 490R 498T pickups in it. It was your standard mahogany body with mahogany neck and an unbound ebony fretboard with no markers. They had Grover tuners, a red switch tip, and black top hat knobs. You can usually find a few of these things come up for sale every year. Their prices generally vary around like the $1,250 to $2,000 price mark. And brand new, the MSRP was $2,497. This was not the only weird guitar that Gibson did in this time. This was kind of like the era of the Guitar of the Week, Guitar of the Month, where they were just doing a bunch of weird stuff. And I loved this period of Gibson history because there's crazy things like this, and then you've got the shark fin over here. But it's one of those models I wanted to wait to talk about until I had one in my hands. So this one is special because, hey, it's black. It's a satin finish instead of gloss. The pickguard and the hardware comes from like the Les Paul and SG Platinum series. You can see it's very different from your typical chrome hardware. It's just plated differently. It has these silver styled speed knobs that strangely go to 15. I mean, I could get it if they did 11, but 15? Who needs that much power? And instead of a red plastic switch tip, you got one of those titanium looking ones. That's metal. The Gibson logo on this guy is a gold silk screen instead of that white one. You've got the platinum truss rod cover, but look at these tuners. What's going on here? The production run had Grovers. These have some freaky tuner. They look like they're made by Schaller to me, the way that it's branded with Gibson. But they have these barrel knobs. And let me tell you, these things, I'm not a big fan. First, they're kind of textured, so they rip your fingers up a little bit. Now, if you have calluses, that's not really going to matter. But I find it's really hard to dial in your tuning with these things, because you're used to having a normal style one where you can just slightly turn it. This one, you have to have enough pressure to even move it. It really does make tuning kind of a pain in the butt. Restringing is a nightmare because all your peg winders don't work, but the one pro here is you can turn them a little bit faster than a standard knob, so it makes it fun to do some down tuning effects, kind of like a tremolo system. Something else I don't like about the design of this guitar is you've got the symmetrical pickguard, right? Yeah, it's kind of cool, but look right here. You see why the protective plastic that's still on the pickguard is peeling up? That's because as you're playing, this little sharp bit is, rubbing against your hand. It hurts a little bit when you're sitting, but it's just mainly a mild annoyance because there's no reason for the pickguard to be there except for the symmetry. This knob is very inconveniently placed because as you're strumming, if you're strumming in the middle, you're running straight into this knob. Now, I get what they were trying to do. Get it there for volume swells because you have a master volume, master tone. But we need to take this, pop those knobs off, move them down just a little bit right here, and then we wouldn't have those issues. You could still strum wherever you like. So with this one, you best like strumming kind of over the neck pickup and into the fretboard area. But besides those 3 downsides to this guitar, honestly, it's pretty comfortable to play. It's sufficient feeling and size. Sometimes you'll pick up an SG and you'll be like, that guitar feels a little bit weak, like it's just gonna snap at the neck. I don't get that with this one, but it still feels very SG-like. I mean, you've got the same contouring around the body as well, once I get it in the light here. So it really is just like a demon-infused SG. Now, why did they call this the Gibson Eye? I have no idea, but it ties in very well with the Judas Priest song, Electric Eye, as you heard in the intro of this video. And hey, if we go to this live version, it almost looks just like this guy's SG that he's playing, and it totally matches Rob Halford's outfit. The reverse flying V was inspired by Judas Priest, so who's to say that this one wasn't either? So is that everything about this guitar? No, not quite. One more lesson with this guy. You see that on the back of the headstock? It's stamped used. If you follow Gibson history or have been watching my channel, you'll know usually whenever there's another stamp on the back of the headstock besides Made in USA or your serial number, it's considered a bad thing. Back in the 70s and 80s, Gibson would stamp things second or with a 2 if they had a finish blemish of some sort, because then they would be sold at a reduced price. Sometimes they would send guitars back to the factory to be stamped that had a hard time selling because they were too expensive. Sometimes you'll find artisans with stories like that. And other times, employee purchased guitars, or they would ding them up themselves so they could buy them at a discount. Essentially, the worst thing about those is the stamp itself, because any small finish blemish has long been forgotten. It doesn't necessarily devalue the guitar, but it does change who is willing to buy it. So in turn, you usually have to sell them at a slight discount to entice somebody to buy it. You can also find one that says like Gibson Original Prototype, which signifies, yes, it is a prototype. Now, in the late 80s and early 90s, you can sometimes find one that says promotional, not for resale. That means it was given to an artist that was endorsed by Gibson, or it was a promotional piece for like a store or something like that. Those can kind of be interesting and sometimes sell for a premium if you can prove who it was originally for, like Slash. And another one that ties in directly to this used stamp is Roadworn. In 2006, there was this huge sale that Gibson did when they were moving from their old custom shop to their new one. They changed over their logos. So what it was this giant mega sale where they were just getting rid of old inventory. They would sell off things like prototypes, demo models, or samples that they were doing, just anything that they didn't want anymore, and you could get really great prices on that stuff. But if it's stamped used, it's pretty much the same thing as the Roadworn sale, it's just at one of the various different other auctions. So this particular one was a Gibson mega sale at their old Nashville Bluegrass showcase facility. You can find old articles talking about this specific guitar being in that auction, as well as a bunch of other things. So that makes this either a demo model, a prototype, or a sample of some sort. And now that I'm thinking about it, perhaps any Black Gibson Eye that you see is really one of the unused bodies from the unsold original Eye series, because the serial numbers that you usually see on these are later. So it's either that story, or these were a prototype for a second run. That just never happened. The instruments sold at these auctions are marked used and road-worn because they are sold as is. No returns. They didn't want people taking them to retail stores and going, oh, I need to return this, or do a warranty claim. And another good way to tell that you have one of these, if you have the original case it was with, you'll have the original shipping materials and the lot number of the guitar. So this one reads the Gibson Platinum Eye due to the platinum hardware. So how many Black Eyes were made? Well, there's at least 2 that I know of. The other one's also for sale on Reverb right now at $3,500. Mine will be considerably cheaper than that. But based on his research, He said Gibson doesn't know, or they just don't care to tell him. There could be up to 60 of them, but I really think we would see more of these if there were that many. So this one's a little bit of a collector's item. The Henry J era sure was fun. I love the weird stuff like this. So now that we've talked about this guitar, learned a little bit about its history, let's go ahead, throw it on the workbench, and see what makes it up.
Alright, so with it all torn apart, no, you don't have giant body routes. It's just kind of like a regular SG here. You've got two humbucker routes right there. It almost kind of looks like one of them transitional tenons. And then a little spot there for your control cavity. Pickup wise, they're Gibson USA's, most likely the same 490R, 498T, but we'll measure those out in a little bit. Really clean wiring here, two Gibson branded pots and a 3-way toggle switch. Now something you might have missed while just looking at this with strings on is there is another point to the pickguard right here. So it's definitely a very striking design. Here's what our bridge looks like. It's got the platinum plating on it, but it's just the normal PW stamp with your two identifying marks on the sides. Similar story with your tailpiece here, just your normal Gibson markings. So why do these knobs go to 15? Is there an extra boost in these pots? No, I'm not really sure why they did that. A feature I really do like about this guitar is the output jack is on the side, whereas most SGs have it on the front. But for our pickup readings here, our neck pickup is reading 8.3 k ohms, and the bridge is a 14.75, so that definitely confirms the 490R, 498T theory. As previously discussed, it is a mahogany body with a mahogany neck, and it has an ebony fretboard here. And everything's in good shape here. I didn't even have to really clean or polish these frets up. They're actually looking pretty good just as is. Unlike the pickguard, the truss rod cover is actually kind of a shiny material on both sides. But here you can see the truss rod cavity, and you have your Gibson silk-screened logo. Backside of the instrument, we don't really have anything to go over back here, but we can take a look at the neck. It has the same satin finish, and these tuners with the Made in USA stamp, as well as the used and regular styled serial number. You have a standard 24 3/4 inch scale length with a 1.69 inch nut width, and by the 12th fret you're at 2.07 inches. Neck depth at first fret is 0.85 inches and 0.96 at the 12th. This example weighs 6 pounds, 12.1 ounces. And lastly, at the bottom, it measures 13 inches wide, and at the horns, it measures 11 inches. To put that into perspective, a Les Paul measures 13 and 9, and it measures 1 1/8 inch deep. Now that we know about the specs of this instrument, let's go ahead and hear how it sounds.
Now that we know how this instrument sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. Condition-wise, this guitar is in great shape. I'm not seeing like any major areas of wear here. Now, you've got some light picking scratches and whatnot, but since this is a satin finish, it's not going to show a lot of wear. This guitar has what I would like to say a bad case of fret sprout. I mean, this one has lived in Michigan likely since its sale, so it's very cold there. It's not that warm in Ohio either, but you know, as the temperatures and humidity changes, it'll probably go back to not being as sharp. But as of right now, you can definitely feel the ends of the frets. I think it's usually like $30-40 for some guy just to file those down, but I do want you to be aware of that. But the frets are in excellent condition. Take a look around the body here. We can see the contouring as well as the body's wood grain here. And as I talked about earlier, the protective coating is still on the pickguard. So if you remove that, any of these small little micro polishes you're seeing from picking and whatnot will disappear. Now right here, there's kind of a more rough spot in the wood. I don't think it's really like a finish defect. I mean, maybe they didn't sand the body of the guitar very well right there, but those are two blemishes right there. And this tone knob has a pretty distinct crack in it. It's not quite like a normal crack. I kind of like how it looks distorted. It's kind of a cool little look, but it is damaged. So everything's looking good at the face of the guitar here. Back of the headstock, obviously you have the U stamp and serial number 0188903997. And the neck, as we saw, it's kind of chunky. Most SGs are like super thin, so if you've always wanted kind of a more fat neck SG that looked demonish, hey, you've got this one. The back of the instrument does not necessarily show any buckle worming or anything. This has mainly just been collector owned. Take a quick look around the edges here. This bottom strap button, for whatever reason, is kind of chewed up. I'm not really sure why though. So yeah, not much to talk about with the condition of this one. It doesn't have a lot of glow because, well, satin finishes and it really has not been in the sunlight too much, but we can see it is the original finish here. Take a quick look around the edges. And now along the back side of the neck. So yeah, kind of a boring condition segment here, but at least we know it's straight. The production run of Eyes got cases, but the prototypes, as far as I've seen so far show up to the market, got these gig bags. This still has the lot number sticker on it, as well as the Gibson tag, so I'm definitely going to go ahead and include this. The interior is just black. It's not the best, but I'm also going to include this hard shell case that I had laying around for it, because I feel this is a piece of Gibson history and it deserves a case, especially at the price of these things. So this is kind of like a Strat styled case. You've got 3 latches on the front. It's nice and secure. If you get it in the light just right, you can see there's some sort of words on this. I believe I got this from a case rental shop that went out of business. But here you can see it's definitely a decent case. Kind of has that new case smell to it. You've got 2 compartments right here and a neck strapper downer. The fit of the case is pretty good. I mean, up and down motion is fairly minimal, but I'll definitely have some extra bubble wrap right here when I send it, so that will put that down to a minimal movement. Then side to side motion
it's completely secure. So as far as an aftermarket case goes for a funky looking guitar like this, hey, we've done pretty well. The headstock is close to touching down, but it's not completely there. But again, I'll hoist it up a little bit with some bubble wrap. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this Gibson Black Eye guitar, feel free to check out that link in the description that will take you to the Reverb for Sale ad. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.